Welcome back to the Blogger Genius podcast. I am your host, Jillian Leslie, and I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, Rand Fishkin. He is the founder of a tool many of you use called SparkToro, which figures out where different audiences hang out online. And Rand is a leading expert in the world of digital marketing. He's here to share some eye-opening insights about Google's algorithm. These are insights that have sparked a lot of controversy in the world of SEO. In today's episode, we dive deep into the recent Google algorithm leak, which, by the way, was leaked directly to Rand. So this document sheds light on how Google ranks various factors, and while SEO still works, Rand offers a crucial piece of advice. The game has changed. So Google increasingly favors big established brands, making it harder for smaller blogs and businesses to stand out. But here's the thing. This doesn't mean you're out of options. In fact, it's an opportunity to get creative, to think outside the box, and to find those unique spaces where your business can shine. And this is exactly where MiloTree comes in, with tools like MiloTree Cart for selling unlimited digital products in under 5 minutes, MiloTree Leads for growing your email list with unlimited freebies, and our social media pop-up app MiloTree for boosting your followers. You can take control of your growth strategy. So you don't have to wait for Google's blessing for your traffic to come back. With MiloTree, you can forge your own path, grow your audience, and increase your income in ways you never thought possible. Ready to take this leap? If so, head over to milotree.com to learn more. And if you're serious about growing your business, book a free 20-minute strategy call with me at milotree.com/meet. It's time to break free from the old rules and build something extraordinary, and I'd love to help you. Now, for today's episode, you are going to learn so much about Google, about the algorithm, about SEO, and about where to point your business. So without further delay, here is my interview with Rand Fishkin. Rand, welcome to the Blogger Genius podcast.
Oh, Jillian, thank you for having me. Good to be here.
What I'm going to do is I am going to link to my recent interview with Amanda Natividad, who is your head of marketing at SparkToro, just because I feel like I am interviewing everybody from your company. So for
Well, you
people
only have one more to go after me because there's only 3 of us.
Oh, okay, perfect. You'll have to hook me up. So Rand, for the people who do not know you or know what you do, because I feel like you are a legend in this kind of online startup SEO kind of space, would you just give a brief description of your background and how you are where you are now?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so I dropped out of college in 2003 and started a company called Moz, which became quite well known in the SEO space, originally as a consulting business and then later as a software company, raised lots of rounds of venture capital, grew very quickly, and then sort of plateaued and experienced lots of challenges. I stepped down as CEO and left the company in 2018 and published a book, Lost and Founder, a painfully honest field guide to the startup world, and then started a new company called SparkToro in 2018, which is focused on audience research. So helping people understand the behaviors and demographics of any describable online group of people. So if you wanted to know which podcasts are popular with interior designers in Los Angeles, or what do chemical engineers in New York, which YouTube channels they subscribe to, what keywords do food bloggers search for, all that kind of stuff. SparkToro can tell you. I've got this passion around sort of building indie, non-venture style, non-hyper growth businesses that can remain profitable for a long period of time and produce dividends for their founders and investors.
And that's what we're doing with MiloTree is
cool.
We are all about bootstrapping and not raising money and really investing in our community, in our customers, and growing that way, like growing sustainably, but without, like just being able so that we can still control our own company.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So the reason I reached out to you was because what I saw in the news was that there was a Google leak of their SEO documents. And it was like this enormous kind of data dump. Is that like, and that somebody leaked these documents to you?
Yeah. So not actually SEO documents. It's a API documentation. So documents that essentially describe
Their
to
search?
their engineering
Okay.
team all of the calls, the API calls that you could make programmatically to get data that you would use in building the ranking system for both Google search, and YouTube search and Android search and all the search properties inside of Google, almost all. I didn't see Gmail in there, oddly enough. I don't know. Maybe this is
Okay.
why Gmail search doesn't work so well. um, but this documentation shared, I believe it was around 14,000 different features. It's thousands of pages of documents, and then there's 14,000 unique elements that can be called. And so those are the elements that compose Google's ranking system.
Right.
Everything is based on those 14,000 features. Granted, that's a lot to look through. I have been through several hundred of the most interesting looking ones to me, but a lot of people in the SEO community have been able to use this to basically understand, does Google use this thing? Oh, no, that's not in there. They don't use that thing. Does Google use this thing? Oh, yes, they do. How do they use it? What's it used for? The only thing the API documentation doesn't tell you, which of course would be very interesting, is how much weight any given factor has in the
Mm.
system. So it doesn't say, oh, whatever it is, that titles of web pages are 50% more important than body text, or something like that. The system is more complex than that. But just to give an example, that's not in there. So you don't know exactly how much they use any given factor. You just know whether they use it or don't.
Okay. And what were your biggest surprises?
Yeah. So
And I've watched
I'm
some
tempted
videos of
to.
you talking about this, but what would you say where you went, huh? Didn't know this was in there or thought this would be a bigger thing and we're not seeing that.
Yeah. Let's see. I think probably a few things that were extremely interesting to me. I'm surprising might be the wrong word. Okay, there's one that was very surprising. Like in all my years doing SEO, I stopped doing SEO in 2018, but obviously for many years before that had been in that field. I never thought to myself that Google would use mentions of a brand name or a website in YouTube transcripts.
Mm.
And that was in there. And I thought to myself, oh, of course, what a good idea. Of course, it's a great idea because YouTube, is such a popular platform. It's basically the most popular content platform on the web. If you include it in the list of social networks, it's the most used social network too.
Mhm.
I don't think of it as social, but the Pew Internet research folks do. And it's always number one. So, of course, if your brand gets mentioned frequently in YouTube, especially around particular topics or around particular keywords, that makes a lot of sense as a ranking factor. I've never seen a professional SEO in all my career, never seen a professional SEO who said, oh, we can help get you and your brand name mentioned in more YouTube videos. So Google probably had a really good ranking factor there in terms of nobody ever tried to spam it.
Mm.
That's a
Mm.
that's a great piece of input. Another one that I thought was quite interesting. Again, it's a simple way to discount low quality links. So just very simplistic. One of those ones that I never thought to do, but makes total sense when you read it, which is uh, Google has a weighting system for how much they count a link, and it's based on Chrome traffic.
Mm.
Do people using the Chrome browser click on the link? If nobody ever does, well, then just don't count it. And of course, almost all spam links never get clicked on. So very easy way to discount spam, right? If you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm a blogger and I need to get 10,000 more links and raise my DA and whatever it is. Well, do you? Or do you
Mm.
need 10 links that lots of people are actually going to click on from places that are going to send you traffic? That seems like it's actually what matters. Gosh, another surprising one that wasn't in there. I didn't see anything discounting social links.
Right. That
So,
was one that I saw you talk about. So initially, Google has come out. Wasn't it kind of common knowledge? Google is not going to look at how many Instagram followers you have because you could game Instagram followers.
but can
Yeah.
you game people clicking on Instagram links, right? If lots of people go to your profile page on Instagram and click that link and follow it over to your website, that's a pretty good signal that you
Mm,
are interesting to a lot of people on Instagram.
mm,
So, for um, whatever, a recipe blogger or a travel writer, or someone in the design field, if you're posting pictures of your incredible interior that your architectural design firm made, and lots of people click your profile and then they go over to your website to book an appointment or whatever it is, well, that's a pretty positive signal that
mm,
you are interesting and useful and maybe should be higher in the rankings. And Google seems to be treating those normally. So anyway, I think the other big takeaway that a lot of folks talked about was um, just a lot of things proving theories from the SEO world, especially like old theories that I had written about or done old Whiteboard Friday videos, the video series I used to do for Moz when I was there. There were a lot of those theories that were confirmed in the
mm.
in the leak. As an example, Jillian, one that was incredibly popular in the SEO world was the idea that Google used clicks and click-through rate and dwell time, right? The
The
time that
time
people
you're on the site.
spend. Yeah, people, for example, if let's say I do a search for um, risotto alla amarone. And when I click on the first result from, I don't know, italianfood.com, I look at the recipe and I go, wait, that doesn't look right. They're using I don't know, arborio rice. Like, I'm out of here. This is clearly wrong. I click the back button and I go down to La Cucina Italiana and I click that. And now I find a risotto alla marrone recipe that looks perfect. And so I stay there, I save that recipe, whatever. I spend time on that site. I don't go back to the search results and click something else. That tells Google, well, La Cucina Italiana,
Solve
probably a
that
very good
problem.
result, especially if
Yeah.
lots of people engage in that behavior consistently. Google for years, I mean, like a decade, they denied that this worked, right? They swore up and down, no way, we don't use clicks, we don't use traffic. Some of their representatives made nasty comments about me in particular in relation to this. And I think when these leaked documents came out, it was fun to see people on like LinkedIn and Threads and stuff saying like, "Oh, look at that, Rand was right all those years ago."
Okay, so
So that was somewhat,
this
yeah,
goes to my
somewhat fun.
question that we talked about before I pressed record, which is so I think the thing that was so shocking for people like me, people reading about this, was for so long, Google would say, oh, no, social doesn't matter, or this doesn't matter. Then you get these documents and it goes, well, actually, it does. So what's happening there? And do you trust Google? Like, what I understand, Google is an enormous organization. So is Google actively lying or what? Like,
Yeah,
what
I
is
think
their perspective on this? Like, why did this, how has this happened?
um, I I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it's just a directive, right, from Google, which is people inside Google have for a long time believed that if their ranking system were made public and that if people understood, essentially how all the inputs worked, that they would game that system and Google's results would fall in quality because spammers and people who manipulate things would take advantage. My argument has long been that Google's ranking system, at least for the last 10 years, has been so sophisticated, secure, and well put together that no spammer could game the system better than a brand or an authentic website. And so the security through obscurity was pointless, and in fact detracted from their quality of results. And internally at Google, you can certainly see that their representatives have been told to message things in a certain way, to deny certain things that are true, to confirm things that are clearly not true. And this leak, I think, was only one in a series of examples, but certainly the big one was that last year's congressional or DOJ case testimony. So when the Department of Justice released the transcripts of Google's executives on the stand in court, who of course can be held liable and potentially get fined and go to jail if they lie, then you saw a lot of all sorts of things coming out that clearly Google's representatives had denied for years. In some cases, continue to deny. Oddly enough, right? Just kind of, I think, sort of like a lot of politicians, they think that by repeating a thing, you go to a conference, you repeat a thing, they go on their Twitter accounts or their Threads accounts or whatever, and they repeat a thing, and they sort of hope, well, maybe it'll misdirect enough people. And there's nothing illegal about that. They're allowed to message whatever they'd like to message, true or not. But it's nice to have this leak to be able to go to the source and say, hey, here's the real deal.
Now, do you think that Google search continues to improve? Or do you feel like over the last 5-10 years, Google search has not gotten better? And in fact, this is where all of us, like my husband for the longest time, would search for something and type Reddit next to the search to get some Reddit results. But now you will see that people are gaming that system. So Reddit is showing up as a top search, but it could be because somebody figured out how to put stuff on Reddit so that it ends up at the top of search. So personally, in my house, I would say there's more frustration with Google. And also from my audience's perspective, many have gotten hit by Google updates. I think there's some bad blood around Google. What is your take on this?
Let's see. So from a data perspective, I always like to put my personal opinion to one side and instead look at sort of the numbers. And if Google were getting worse and people believe that Google is getting worse, two things would almost certainly be true. Number one, their ad revenue would fall, right? Because people would be searching less on Google, or they would be clicking on fewer results in Google, those kinds of things. And the second is that you would see that the number of searches performed each month and the number of active searchers on Google was falling, right? People would switch to
TikTok.
DuckDuckGo or Bing or
No,
ChatGPT.
but now it's like TikTok.
Sure, TikTok, yeah. Go directly to Reddit, like whatever you want. Neither of those things are true, right? Google has more searchers per month than they've ever had, more searches per searcher per month than they've ever had. This is as of May data. I just published a report actually on SparkToro that looked at some of the Datos numbers. Datos is our clickstream provider for SparkToro, and their ad revenue is at an all-time high. So look, I think every year that I was in SEO, obviously it's been a little while now, so I can't speak the last 5 years, but every year I was in SEO, someone came out with, the New York Times would publish a thing, Google is getting worse in 2005. Google used to be amazing in 2003, but now it's 2005. Google's terrible. 2010, Google's the worst. They used to be so good in the early 2000s, but now they've gotten much worse. 2015, Google in 2010 was truly a juggernaut and innovative, but now they're terrible. I just ignore all of those. I think it's just how it is. When there's a dominant monopoly player in a space, everyone's trying to look for the story or angle that kind of takes them down. And I don't have a lot of love for Google anymore. I mean, I think they've done some wonderful things for the world, but they've also done some things that really frustrate me. They haven't been Many of their representatives, as I mentioned, have not been particularly kind to me. But on the whole, that they're good, right? Like
Hmm.
I would not short Google stock if I were you. I would be very careful about doing that. I don't think they're going anywhere for a long time. It doesn't look like the rise of AI is
Or
taking any
or
kind of bite,
Bing.
or Bing or DuckDuckGo or TikTok. None of them. So I think a lot of these anecdotal stories resonate with people because they capture a feeling that we have. I feel like I used to have a more magical experience with Google, and I have been frustrated recently. My guess is you were probably just as frustrated in that magical feeling time. You don't remember it as well. And so
That's
the
interesting.
recency bias and all the
Yes.
psychological biases that we have around negativity come to the surface. Those stories resonate. We click those. So publishers keep publishing those stories because they know they can get clicks.
I want to take a short break to share that I've got something special for you. If you're looking to grow your email list quickly, I've put together a free resource that you won't want to miss. It is called The 3 AI Prompts You Need to Create an Easy Cheat Sheet. With just these 3 prompts, you can easily create a high-value opt-in that your audience will love. Ready to take your email list to the next level? Get your freebie. Just head over to milotree.com/freebie prompts. That's milotree.com/freebie prompts and start growing your list like a pro. So do you think that search still works? For example, keywords still work. Traditional blog posts still work. As we move into this world where it's short form video or TikTok or whatever, like that traditional model, because a lot of my audience, let's say they're food bloggers and they're discouraged, does that model still work? I create a recipe, maybe I do some keyword research, and I create like the best, I don't know, vegan banana muffin recipe.
Yeah. So here's what I'd say about any given marketing practice, including very classic blog post style SEO, which is uh, in some sectors for some keywords with some degree of the right combination of sort of website and brand. Yes, it still works. And on the whole, if you look at what has happened in not only Google, but also the social media world, you can see that bigger brands and fewer brands total are dominating the spaces, right? So we've moved from the internet of 25 years ago, which was all weird, independent little sites. Even 10 or 15 years ago, there was a tremendous amount of opportunity for new players and small players and indie players and people who kind of didn't know what they were doing, but they were getting their feet wet, and they read a few blog posts about how to do some SEO, how to do some content marketing, how to do some social media marketing, and they managed to have success. And now we are seeing what we saw, in the 20th century with any sector of the economy, which is a few big players get very good at it. They dominate those spaces. And consumers, unfortunately, trust names that they know. And so if your brand name is new, is unfamiliar, you are unlikely to get as many clicks, as many followers, as many email subscribers. So it's very tough to break into a sector, far more so, the last 5 years than it was the 10 years before that or the 15 years before that. So, Jillian, I often give advice to people that if you are a new player or a small player in a space, you're a local small business, you're a local recipe blogger, you are starting up your architectural design business, my advice is to try and find channels and sources of influence that your competitors are not going after,
Mm.
that are wider open. And those tend to be the ones that are the hardest to measure because big companies don't like to invest dollars or time and energy into sources that are hard to measure.
Can you give me
So,
some examples? Yeah.
sure, sure. PR is a great example, right? Not a lot of companies trying to go get featured in local media, small media, niche media, get on your favorite podcasts, right? Pitch yourself as an interesting guest, do some interesting webinars, be present in a few conferences, contribute to some nonprofits, do some co-marketed research with a small brand in your space, get mentioned in somebody else's email newsletter, get talked about on somebody else's blog. That kind of stuff, very hard to measure, very tough to do at scale, especially when we're talking about small and mid-size, sites and opportunities and conferences and events and, press and media. Big brands they ignore it, right? They just pour their dollars and energy into the big platforms. I'm going to put a bunch of energy into Facebook or Reddit or YouTube or Google. Everything else can sit by the wayside. That's where it tends to be the best places to build that opportunity. So for SparkToro, when I left Moz, I knew this was true. And we essentially have built, Amanda and I have done almost no SEO. And we don't do a lot of big channel participation. We do next to zero advertising. The only advertisement we have ever purchased is we sponsored a friend of mine's like charity run. We got our logo placed on his butt for the run because he emailed us and was like, I can't get anybody to sponsor my butt. I was like, yeah, we'll take the back side of your shorts as the sponsor spot. No problem. So that's the only advertising money we've ever spent. Almost all the marketing that we do for SparkToro is we go on other people's podcasts, we find other webinars, we go speak at other people's conferences and events, we find email newsletters in the space, right, in the audience research or marketing space. We go and do co-marketing with folks like Datos, right, for example, the clickstream provider that does a lot of the research with us. We built up a content brand on SparkToro that gets no SEO. We
Wow.
get literally next to zero visits from Google search. The only visits we get are for our own brand name. We don't rank for anything. Even the research, the unique research that we publish, we don't rank for it because Google prefers, stuff that's higher up. For example, when we published research recently about zero-click searches or the zero-click search problem and the zero-click platform problem in social media, that research got tons of coverage from big media outlets and small ones and niche ones, and they all outrank us. So if you search for zero-click searches 2024, you won't find SparkToro. You'll find Search Engine Land or The Verge or NPR or whoever's written about it. They point back to us. We get our brand mention, so we're happy with that. But it's very hard to measure. A big brand would never invest this way.
That
And
is
that's what I urge. That's what I urge small and
That
indie
is
brands to
so
do.
interesting. And in fact, Amanda on my episode talked about zero click content, which is where you're putting your content on Instagram, let's say, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, wherever, without the anticipation of there's that link and people are going to click. It's like, be where people are, be where people want to consume content. And if they click, right, like meaning if every so often you put a link that's very valuable, they might click, but really it's about, I would say, mind share, getting into people's brains so that, oh, there's another post from SparkToro or from Milo Tree. Oh, I should pay attention to this. And then if I want to, let's say, get some audience research software, I'm going to go find you guys. If I want to sell digital products, you're going to go find Milo Tree because you've heard about it. And so it's, again, harder to measure, but you're building up that loyalty, that sense of, you deliver and I trust you. Going
Yeah.
back to our conversation about can we trust Google? Who do you trust? And so if you can win that trust award, even without the link back, that is more what you're saying, especially if you're a smaller player, that's more valuable or can be very valuable.
Yeah, exactly. if I were coaching a recipe or a food blogger, I would tell them, try and build brand resonance in your one particular space.
Mm,
So rather than I'm going to do a bunch of keyword research and look, these 5,000 keywords look really good, I'm going to make a recipe for each one. I wouldn't do that. I would not do that at all. I would instead say, I am really good at polished visual food photography, and I really love vegan baking. Marry those two things. Put those two things together. That's your unique value proposition. That's the space that you want to be known in. And so now when anybody on whatever, YouTube or TikTok or Reddit or Instagram, all these places where visual content shines. Threads is actually good too. I think Threads does a nicer job with visual content than Twitter did. That's where I would start
mm,
to build my audience, and I would include the full recipe, the full detail, the full video that shows the whole thing, or at least the short, the 90-second version that can live on those platforms really nicely. And then, yeah, if people want to come check out more from you, they will. But after the 10th vegan baking recipe that they think looks amazing, chances are good next time they want some vegan
right.
baking, they're going to
They're
come
gonna
to
want,
you. They're going to
right,
search for you.
right.
And this was also in the Google leak, in case you missed it. If people search for your brand, you mentioned your husband, right, Jillian, searching for keywords plus Reddit.
Right.
If people search for, vegan banana muffin plus your brand, you will rank higher for just vegan banana muffin, right? Google has this sense that when people append a brand name to an unbranded search, it means that you are more relevant and should be ranked higher for the unbranded version as well.
What's
So,
interesting and what you're saying is, especially in this world of AI, where content in and of itself becomes less valuable, Rand, you become more valuable because I trust you. So whatever
yeah,
you're
humans.
saying next, I go, ooh, Rand said that. I'm going to pay attention to that. And this also speaks to what I talk about, selling your expertise. You don't need a million customers
Mm-mm.
for your ebook, for your course, for your membership, but you need those people to be evangelists to feel like, wow, you're really selling something of value and want to buy from you because they feel connected to you. So it kind of turns this, it flips it on its head of, oh my God, I need millions of page views from Google, to no, I'm going to be a little bit more stealth or targeted, or kind of put more of me into my own
Yeah.
marketing, and not just necessarily just buy ads on Facebook and think I'm going to just flip this switch and my business is going to just show up for me.
Yeah, I have a friend in the UK who ran a travel website. It's very popular. She was doing extraordinarily well in Google, specifically getting 80, 90% plus of her traffic from Google, ranked for all sorts of keywords. And then I don't remember which update hit her, but one of the updates hit her, and she sort of lost all her traffic. And she had some conversations because she was well connected. She had some conversations with like people at Google and lots of professional SEOs, and the consensus, unfortunately, was like, well, your content is great. The website is good. Like there's nothing technically wrong, but there's no brand here,
Mm,
right? There's no personal brand. And so that you're not getting the signals that Google cares about more than they used to, which are who is the person or brand associated with this thing? Is it getting mentioned a lot? Is it getting specifically searched for? No, you're just creating good, unique, useful content that answers the searcher's query. That's not enough. That's not what we think people want anymore. And so that's not what Google is surfacing anymore. They're surfacing brands that people already know, like, and trust. You can see
right.
in Google if part of your complaint, right, is, oh, I don't think the results are as good anymore. Well, part of that could be because you preferred good, unique, useful content that answered your search query over brands that you were familiar with. And now Google is much more brands you are familiar with.
Interesting. Interesting.
But the
So
content doesn't need to be nearly as good.
that's so interesting. Well, it kind of speaks to, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and it's so fascinating because she's in all these like micro communities that are very large. She'll know of like K-pop artists that, I don't know, will look on YouTube and that video will be seen by 10 million people, but I've never heard of them. Like it's
Yeah.
no longer just these people that everybody's heard of. So there are and I can't call those micro communities, they're still enormous, but now we have different communities that we're in. So
Yeah.
is there a way that you can be a bigger player in the vegan baking world?
Exactly. Exactly. I think about this a lot from a product entrepreneurship and product design perspective rather than exclusively a marketing channel perspective. I think the days of exclusively marketing channel perspective are sort of ending, where it's going to be extremely hard to say, I have a generic product that generically solves the customer's problem. Now go execute really well on marketing channels. I don't think that's the way. I think the way forward is I have a very unique brandable product that turns off a lot of people. A ton
Mm,
of people hate it.
mm,
This little segment loves it.
mm.
Now we're talking, right? I think it's so smart to make enemies and also build a community, a small community of people who super resonate with you versus we're bland and generic, we're for everyone, sort of doesn't matter who or what we are. It's just about the product is good. That does not work as well in modern sales and marketing.
It's funny because I was just going over our FAQ on our Milotree site, and I have an FAQ of who is this product not for? And I go tech bros because we
Yeah.
create very simple tools. If you're a tech bro and you want to be in there customizing stuff, we are not for you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And there's other products, I can't remember their names now, but I have a
Right.
friend
You
who
want,
runs something that's like
yeah.
there's other products for those kinds of people. Perfect. And you're for your kind of person. And so the beautiful thing about that is you can create content that resonates, create messaging and brand and colors and logo and style and events and a podcast and all the things, right? All the things around a brand that resonate with your audience and don't match up with another one. And that is perfect, right? It really works.
And I think coming up with a unique perspective that you might not even know is so unique. And this is where I say, go ask your friends what your vibe is, because a lot of times you don't see your vibe because you live inside you. And
Hmm.
I was just talking to an online entrepreneur and she does decluttering, right?
Hmm.
She
Yeah.
goes in and makes spaces less cluttered. And
Right.
what I said is because this impacts you, like you can't handle clutter and it makes your brain explode. So start talking about that because I'm assuming there are other people whose brains explode with clutter. And if you can touch on those people and be like, hey, I'm that person. I relate to, rather than let's just declutter our playroom or let's just declutter, like get through, clear out our refrigerator. But it's like sell those feelings of, oh my God, clutter makes me anxious. Clutter makes me, feel stuck. So here are my solutions. Are you that person? Do you feel that way? Come along on this journey with me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because I don't think marketers have been trained or taught. I don't think if you do searches in Google for how to do digital marketing or how to become great at web marketing, I don't think you'll find any of this advice, which is sad and frustrating and maybe something that, people like me need to change, but also um, I think it does give you the competitive advantage that straight up SEO no longer does.
So if you are let's say a blogger and you got hit by Google and you're salty, right? Would you go, okay, what I need to do is I need to do more blog posts and I need to do more keyword research and get kind of back in the good graces of Google? Or would you say, no, 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 I'm going to pivot and kind of do more of these strategies? Like you talking about SparkToro and how you guys don't rely on SEO at all, and you're not running any ads.
Nope.
So, and you've built a successful business.
Yeah,
Like, so what would
it's
you
doing
say to me?
quite
I've
nice.
got hit. I feel depressed. I hate Google. Uh,
Use that. Use that, right? Like I think one of the wonderful things that you can do once you are outside of a keyword research driven, Google SEO driven, rules based marketing set is you get to be you. You get to do the creative things that you're passionate about and build the audience that you want to build instead of trying to be for everyone. And when you're trying to be for everyone, you're going to be bland. You're going to be without purpose. You're going to be politically neutral. You have to be emotionally neutral. You have to be psychologically neutral. Boring.
mm.
Just get me out of here. I'm not looking for Better Homes and Gardens magazine of 1985, right? I want someone with a perspective that I resonate with. I want someone who tells me exactly which butter and flour to buy because those ones are whatever the right ethical sourcing or the right amount of fat content or they're made in a certain way or whatever it is. I want that perspective. I'm much more passionate and interested in that than I am um, just the product. And I think you can feel this throughout every kind of world, right? Whether we're talking about people who sell cookbooks, which are much more personality and perspective and story driven than, oh, here's a quite good cookbook about vegan baking. It's no, no, no. It belongs to this person who runs this bakery, who has this TikTok channel, who, you know, that
Mhm.
that's what you got to build.
So it's interesting. So you're saying have a point of view. Be willing, this is hard, especially for women, to not befriend everybody, to define yourself through who you don't befriend, who doesn't like you.
Yeah.
That's hard.
I mean, I will say, I think, Jillian, your and my generation, women probably found that more challenging than women of upcoming generations. I think that there is a sort of a beautiful thing that girls and women do on social media and have found through the internet and have found through the openness of the world of the last 20 years, which is to be themselves and to express who they are without without sort of some of the hangups and the gosh, I've got to rein that in order to be professional. I think
Mhm.
the rein it in to be professional age is largely ending, especially in personal brand and entrepreneurship fields. If we're talking about, hey, I'm applying for a big corporate job, okay,
Right.
different story,
You
right? Like
don't bring
different
your whole
world.
self there. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's not always reasonable to do that. And men probably are still given a lot more flexibility there. But in personal branding, the people that I see resonating with, especially younger folks, but even older demographics too, are those that bring themselves and their perspectives, even the ones I strongly disagree with, right, to the table, and they build audiences through that.
That's interesting. That's super helpful. I feel like when you were talking about really the Pareto principle, which is this idea that it shows up in so many things, which is the whole idea is the 80-20 rule that
Mhm.
80% of your traffic will come from 20% of your posts. 80% of your sales income will come from 20% of your products. It's like how Taylor Swift and maybe three other artists are taking up all of the music
Yeah.
sales. But it used to be that there was room in the middle, and now that's kind of cut out. However, and so when you were saying this, like the big players, Coke is always going to be Coke kind of thing, or Google will always be Google. That kind of bummed me out when you just said it. I was like, oh, because what if I want to be a new brand? And then though, the rest of our conversation has really lifted me up and made me feel much more hopeful because I'm going to bet, like I bet on me that hopefully by me putting my truth out there, my beliefs about business building, meeting like-minded people like you, that I can create a community of like-minded people. So
Yeah.
in a weird way, you're leaving me with a like with much more hope and optimism, especially in a world with AI coming down the pike, and can't trust what's created by machines and what is real. But what you're saying is real and be more real.
Yeah. And I think that there's a slight corollary or an addition to this advice, which is there's sort of the world of things that you personally care deeply about and you're going to bring to your personal brand. And then I would just look for if this circle in the diagram is you and your personal brand and all the things you believe and deeply care about, and this is your audience, I would look for the overlap of
Hmm.
those. And that's where I would go and create your content, your product, your unique value proposition, your emotional branding, your messaging. I would look for that intersect. I think it is still true that not everything that you do is going to resonate with all of the people that you want to reach. But when you find that intersect, that's where you can focus your efforts. And this is why, I'm so passionate about audience research, which is essentially surveys, interviews, and data at scale. Obviously, SparkToro is the data at scale portion, but we're talking more about what you can learn from surveys and interviews here, right? But we're talking about surveying your audience, having deep, resonant conversations with a bunch of individual people in your audience about what they consume and why and what they care about, and then finding oh my gosh, 10 out of the 15 people I talked to about vegan baking all said the same thing about, I don't know, some problem with the texture of vegan baking, or their opinions about how good the sweets could be, or their thoughts on I don't know, the ethics of it, or whatever it is, right? And their associations. And I care about solving that same problem.
Hmm.
So that's where I'm going to focus.
Hmm.
And that works.
Well, Rand, I have to say that you've given me so much to think about and hopefully inspired my audience, who I feel has taken some hard knocks recently
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And
feels
my heart goes out to them. I mean, I
kind of like
know.
at the whim of these large companies that don't
Yeah.
care about them.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think one of the beautiful things about doing marketing in this fashion, right? Essentially doing the audience research to find your audience's sources of influence and inspiration and their emotional resonance, the things that resonate with them, that frees you. It
Mm.
frees you from the demands of these big platforms, and it lets you do creative and exciting things that you never would have been able to do inside the constraints of Google's or YouTube's or TikTok's or Instagram's ecosystem. And you can play with all of those channels with the things that you do create.
I think that's great. All right, Rand, if people want to learn more about SparkToro, I love your content that you share. And
Oh, thank
and
you.
as I had said, you're sharing much more on Threads now
Yeah.
and LinkedIn, it seems. Are those your main
Yep.
platforms?
Those are the big two for us. Yep.
Okay, because I feel like you do come up with interesting insights just about marketing and the industry and what's happening. So I recommend you guys find Rand and follow him. But
Oh,
where are the best places for people to reach out to you or ask you questions or see what you're up to?
yeah, yeah. So on Threads, I'm Rand de Ruyter, which is my wife's last name, and on LinkedIn, Rand Fishkin. And if you want to try out SparkToro, it's free. There's no you don't need a credit card to sign up or anything. It's just sparktoro.com. Our blog has lots of the information and research reports that you and I have been talking about today, and of course, Amanda's great blog posts are there too.
Awesome. Well, I just have to say thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jillian.
I hope you guys like this episode. I had multiple takeaways. The first is that Google is still Google. It is still a powerhouse. It is worth working on SEO, even if Google isn't always so upfront with how the algorithm works. They are really trying to build a useful product. However, because Google does favor big brands, it is in your best interest, in my best interest, to find a way to compete in those spaces, in those cracks where big brands don't live. And that it is much more about being a personal brand with a point of view. So get used to expressing that. Keep leaning into what makes you different, what makes people fall in love with you and people not like you. Get on podcasts. If you think you'd be a good guest for my show, reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. But now it's about getting super creative. I have been getting on so many calls with bloggers who say to me they no longer want to just play the Google traffic game. If this is you, definitely get on a free 20-minute strategy call with me where I will show you the beauty of building digital products and selling them to your audience. With this strategy, the sky is the limit. To book a call, go to milotree.com/meet because I would love to meet you. I'd love to help you. If you've liked this episode, please share it with a friend. If you are enjoying the podcast, please go to iTunes and give it 5 stars. I'd be so appreciative. And I will see you here again next week.